Welcome America, welcome Taylor Swift. Today we're going to be doing an introduction to logic in room Studio 202 today.
Yeah.
Bye.
Guess I'm teaching. Okay. It's a good thing I didn't do that because that was my daughter Heidi. That was a reenactment of a video that we did like several years ago, which I will link on this video so you can see it. It's amazing. Okay, so yes, I've been welcoming Justin Bieber. I want to apologize. I have been welcoming him by accident at the beginning of every video, but I keep getting reminders to welcome Taylor Swift. So today we are going to start with writing this sentence in if-then form. We're going to write it in a conditional form. So everybody at the party received a gift. So how can we put that in if-then form, write it as a conditional statement? If, we can't change the information or add additional information, we have to put it in the same order. So we have to talk about the party and then the gift. So if you're at the party, then you receive a gift. That's it. That is it. If you go to the party, then you received a gift. Bless you. Now we are going to move on to, we're going to talk about the key words in a conditional statement. So sometimes it's useful and helpful to look for the keywords because we are going to write related conditionals. We're going to write what are called the converse, where you switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. The hypothesis is what comes after the if. Your library book is damaged. The conclusion is what comes after the then. You will have to pay a fine. And we are going to talk about different related conditionals. So before we do that, we're going to identify what the important words are and make sure we put them in the right place. So here, book is damaged, pay a fine. So the converse of a conditional statement switches the hypothesis and the conclusion. So knowing the key words here, we're going to switch those. What comes after the if, what comes after the then, we're going to switch them. So if your library book is damaged, then you will have to pay a fine. So if you have to pay a fine, that's right, then your library book is damaged. Now that's not necessarily a true statement if the original statement is true. We're going to talk about truth values in a little bit. So if you have to pay a fine, then your library book is damaged. Oh my gosh, do you guys hear that? We have it on recording now. There's a frog in my room. That is a frog. It's been there for at least a week. It's been there for like at least a week. I think it's in the cinder block outside of my window. I feel really bad for it. I already emailed the school about it and no one's responded. No one cares about my frog. I'm really invested in this frog's life. Okay. Moving on. Poor frog. So let's see if we can't identify the key words and then write the converse to the statement. Oh gosh, I hope I pronounced this right. Okay. If you have visited the Louvre, is that right? Le Louvre. Le Louvre. Le Louvre. Thank you. Okay. If you have visited Le Louvre, which is right here, visited the Louvre. You have been to Paris. Now, they left out the then, but it's the same as if. Sometimes you'll see that. If there's a then here, it's the same. Then you have been to Paris. So we're going to switch those. So if you have been to Paris, then you have visited Le Louvre. Those buses are loud, aren't they? Good, moving on. Heidi, start starts class and then she applies makeup.
I was just looking at my eyebrows.
Oh, okay. Even better. All right, so the inverse is the next type of related conditional. So the converse is when you switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. The inverse is when you keep them in the same place and you make them negative, you make them not. So, if your library book is damaged, then you will have to pay a fine. There's the original conditional statement. Here's the related conditional. If your library book is not damaged, then you will not have to pay a fine. Okay? So, if the original statement already has a not in it, then you're going to take the not out. You're not going to write not. Because we know a negative times a negative, a double negative, ends up being a positive. So we just take the not out. Write the inverse of this conditional statement. So here are the key words. Here we go. We're going to make them both not. If you have not visited the Louvre, then you have not been to Paris. Go ahead and just write that in. This thing always falls off. Good? Ready to move on? One more type of related conditional. This last one is called the contrapositive. The contrapositive switches the order of the hypothesis and the conclusion, just like the converse, and it makes them negative. So, if your library book is damaged, then you will have to pay a fine. The contrapositive of that statement is, if you do not have to pay a fine, then your library book is not damaged. So let's try it. Oh, guess we're just looking at the statements here. So if you have not been to Paris, then you have not visited the Louvre. That's the second one. So the converse is the switch. The inverse is negate each statement, make them negative, make them not. And the contrapositive is both, switch and negate. And you just have to memorize those. Most people remember the contrapositive, it's the longest word, so you have to do both. Oh, the be real just came out. Let's do be reals. Who has be real? I'm gonna be in it. This is gonna be lit. It's gonna be amazing. Okay, I just learned about it in pre-cal the other day when it went off. I was like, why is everyone taking out their phone right now? And they're like, because Be Real went off. And I was like, what is that? And then they told me, and then one kid's like, do you want to take mine? And I was like, sure. And then I saw what it was, and I didn't know when you took it that it would take your picture too. So I'm all like, you know. It was great. Okay, it was so great. Now I have Be Real. All right, what is the contrapositive of? This is the last slide we're gonna do. If our plane is not late, then we make our connecting flight. Notice there's already a not. So we're gonna switch and make them negative. So if we don't make our connecting flight, then how are we gonna change our plane is not late?
Our plane is late.
Our plane is late. Then our plane is late. Okay, the last thing I want to go over, and I don't know, I'm going to move this. Is on this board. Bless you. Okay, so I want to just talk about truth values really quickly. So if I show you, and this isn't my favorite example, but just for the purposes, I already have it on the board here. If you write a conditional statement, and my dog's name is Spuds. If I take Spuds for a walk, then he pees. Okay? So if I switch the hypothesis and the conclusion, I can write the converse. If he pees, then I walk him. So let's assume that this first statement is true. If I take Spuds for a walk, then he pees. That is actually a true statement. He goes to the bathroom on absolutely everything. He tries to hit trash cans and flowers and all things that I don't want him to pee on. However, he also pees in the house, right? So this statement is false. The converse is false, because if he pees, then I walk him. That is not accurate information, because he also goes in the house. So just because he pees doesn't mean I'm walking him. So the point is that just because a conditional is true, if you switch the hypothesis and the conclusion, doesn't mean that statement's also going to be true. Okay? So now we look at the inverse. If I don't walk Spuds, then he doesn't pee. Well, if I don't walk Spuds, that doesn't mean he's not going to pee, because he pees in the house. So the truth value of the converse and the inverse are the same. So if you find that the converse is false, then you know that the inverse is also going to be false. Same for the original statement and the contrapositive. They will have the same truth value. So if the if-then conditional statement is true, then so will the contrapositive be also true. And those are the truth values of the conditionals and related conditionals. All right, that is all for now. Peace out.